you can go to wec.ca and sign up for our e-news and our e-blasts. And again, you'll find a wealth of information and resources that can help you with your business, no matter what stage that you're at. So again, today we're here to present Selling Your Professional Services to the Government of Canada. And we're excited to have Tess Menges from the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises to give us information on this topic. Tess is the supply specialist. So today she's going to talk about how to register your business in the Centralized Professional Service System, how the government purchases services and uses standing offers and supply arrangements, and then finally, which procurement tool the Government of Canada buyer may use for purchasing professional services. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Tess. Welcome. And I'll just switch them to your slides Caitlin. Here. There you go. Do you see the slides?
So I do apologize. Thanks. And I can control them?
Yep, you should be able to. It's a bit different, so it'll be on your left-hand side.
Okay. Yeah, okay, got it. Sorry, everyone, for the delay. It could very well have been my computer issues. We are still using Internet Explorer as our browser, so we don't have the latest technology here, but we'll get going with supplying professional services. So this is the first in a two-part series that the Office of Small and Medium Enterprise is going to put on with Women's Enterprise Center. We are going to do a follow-up, more specific session in November that will specifically talk about ProServices, which is one method of supply that I will get into a little bit. And this is more of a general overview of all types of services through the federal. So I work for the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises, or OSME. I work for the office in Pacific region, which is located in Vancouver, and we also have staff in Victoria, but we are accessible all around BC and the Yukon. We actually have someone up in Whitehorse right now. And then our office has regional offices across the country as well. So no matter where you are, please do reach out to us for support, assistance as you navigate through the federal procurement process. And I'm sure you will have questions after this session, so our contact information is at the end, and we are happy to meet with you either in person or over the phone and help you out further to understand the process around supplying to the federal government. So just an overview of some of the more frequently purchased services that the government is looking for. This is not a complete list by any stretch. We monitor our procurement tendering website today, every day, just to see new tenders, and there's always a variety of different opportunities out there for you. Yesterday, I believe, Elections Canada was actually looking for someone who could do social media monitoring related to the election. So there is a wide variety, but just to give you a sense of some of the top things, we're always looking for project managers, organization, classification people. Change management is a big focus within the federal government, engineers, training, translation. We actually have one of the largest translation bureaus, and our translation bureau is used by other governments in other countries as well to assist them. And a lot of that work is actually outsourced to different translation companies. And we do a lot in the IT, informatics, HR fields as well. So just to give you a sense of what we would be looking for. The main way that we buy professional services is through a pre-approved agreement or list, and those lists are called either a standing offer or a supply arrangement. So these types of agreements or lists are used to meet recurring needs when departments or agencies know that they have a high demand. They're going to need that service on an ongoing basis, but they're just unsure of the exact number, the exact timing, all of that. So the way it works is we put together a standing offer or a supply arrangement, and we allow companies to get onto that list. And once you're on that list, we will issue contracts using something called a call-up method if you are on a standing offer. So it's, as it sounds, maybe an email as well, but we will call you up or send you an email and say, you are on this standing offer. We are looking for these goods or services in this case. You have already given us your prices. You have agreed to certain terms and conditions. We're just wondering if you are capable at this time to provide this. If you are, that is great. You can let us know and we would proceed with issuing a contract. If you are too busy, if you don't have the supply, you don't have the personnel, whatever the circumstance may be, it is not, you do not have to supply at that time. You can simply respond and say, unfortunately, I'm too busy at this time, but please consider me for the next opportunity. So there's no contractual obligation once you are on a standing offer list until an actual contract is formed using a call-up or an email. Supply arrangements are very similar to those standing offers. You may see more of these in the service industry as opposed to a standing offer, because standing offers, we do have set prices. And as you will know, in the service industry, it's a little bit harder to give us a set price when you don't actually know what the complete deliverable would be. So often we will pre-qualify you based on your skill set, number of years in business, you know, junior, middle, senior staff availability, different things like that onto a list. And then as we have the specific need come up, we will send you what we call a mini request for proposal, a mini RFP, or similar to a statement of work, where we would outline exactly what we are looking for. So in the case of, say, French language training, perhaps we are looking for someone who can come into our office 1 day a week for 2 hours and work with, you know, individual students or a group of students for the next 6 months. So we would outline all of that in what we would call the mini RFP that we would send to a few different people on the supply arrangement, and we would ask them to respond back. And at that point, you would give us pricing, and you would be confirming that you are actually able to do that work at the time that we have described. And then we would evaluate those, and we would come up with who we're going to award the contract to. So an example of one of our standing offers or supply arrangements is for task-based professional services. So often with task-based professional services, these would be considered a standing offer, because we are going to tell you specifically what the task is. So there's not a lot of difference in the responses we would get. We are more looking for your availability and your rates at the time. That would be a task-based professional service. Contrary to that would be a solution-based professional service. So this is where there's more flexibility. This is where we are looking to you to solve a problem. So we are going to go out and say, you know, this is our problem. What do you think would be the best solution? So we're going to get a variety of responses. So this may fall more under a supply arrangement because there's a bit more flexibility, and we can actually evaluate your response in terms of our needs. So you can see some of the solutions that you would propose would be kind of, you know, what is going to be your project management plan, consulting services, how are you going to assess risk, what are you going to do for quality management, and what is your overall solution to our problem. We would assign points to all of that, and then we would come up with the best overall proposal, and we would go with that company. The first step in supplying professional services to the federal government, I'm going to talk about 2 different systems that you need to register in. And both of these are kind of your own self-maintained profile systems that you want to be in. And this is all before you would even be able to register or apply to a standing offer or supply arrangement. So the first is a general system for any company who wants to supply to the federal government, no matter what it is that they are supplying. You'd want to register in something called Supplier Registration Information System, or SRI. The minimum requirement to supply to the federal government is that you have a business number. So if you don't have a GST number yet, that is perfectly fine, but you do need a CRA business number. And if you do have a GST number, then your business number is the first 9 digits before the R. So you put that into this SRI, Supplier Registration Information System, and we will give you something called a Procurement Business Number, or a PBN. You will be asked to add, your address and contact information, what you're interested in supplying to us. But the end result is you get a PBN, and it is a self-maintained profile, so feel free to update it as you like. But you do need the PBN to move on to the next step. And everything that I'm going to reference about registering is all accessible on buyandsell.gc.ca. That is our main website that we use. That's where we post our tenders. All of that is there. To find SRI on buyandsell.gc.ca, you can hover over the For Business tab and you will see Register in Supplier Registration Information. The next system, once you have a Procurement Business Number, is that you want to look at the Centralized Professional Services System, or what we call CPSS. It is an ePortal, and again, this is kind of your dashboard. It has a bunch of different information about various standing offers, supply arrangements, methods that we use to buy professional services. It has a dashboard in there that will allow you to keep track of when different agreements are going to open, so that you know when you want to bid in them. It will also ask you to upload different information about your company, and what skills you have, what qualifications. So there's kind of a tombstone data collection within the system where you can input all information that we will need when you are bidding on those different standing offers and supply arrangements. The presentation will be shared with you, so you will have all these links available to you. And you can also find CPSS under the Goods and Services tab of the Buy and Sell website. Or personally, I think that Google works very well when you're looking for things on government websites. So I think if you actually just Google CPSS, you don't need to type out the whole thing. It will be the second link, I believe, that appears in Google, and it will take you to the registration portal and everything like that, all those links that were just shown. So within the CPSS ePortal, you can bid on the following standing offers or supply arrangements. So ProServices, that's the main one that we like to promote and talk about. ProServices, we'll get into it a little bit more, but it's for IT and HR type professional services. And it's for requirements that are up to the NAFTA threshold. So it is just for Canadian companies to be in that system. TSPS, Task and Solutions Professional Services, Task-Based Informatics Professional Services, and Solution-Based Informatics Professional Services, the next 3 bullets. Those are just anything when we have requirements that are above the NAFTA threshold, so above, I think it's $106,000 now. They're the same kind of streams and categories as ProServices, but it's higher dollar value amounts, and there's a lot more requirements to get into those supply arrangements. For example, TSPS, Task and Solutions Professional Services, you do have to demonstrate around $500,000 in sales in the last 5 years in order to qualify for that. So we don't often highlight those too much, because that is a lot of business revenue that companies need. And then learning services, this is something to assist. We actually have a school essentially for the federal government, and so learning services is to assist them with their courseware, putting some classroom learning on online versions, so that can be shared across the country. There's various things related to that. And then PASS, which is the Professional Audit Support Service. So if you are an auditor, you would want to look at this supply arrangement. So all of those that I just listed are available through CPSS. Some of these other ones are not available through CPSS. So if you are not in the what we call HR kind of business consulting or IT fields, you would want to look outside of that portal. And these are all available again through the Buy and Sell website, but these are some additional service standing offers and supply arrangements that we do have. So in terms of temporary help services, we are going to get into what all of those that I just listed, all of those standing offers, supply arrangements that I just listed, we are going to get into what each one is later on. In terms of security requirements, so if you are looking to be in ProServices, we will sponsor you to have a security clearance with the federal government. Most of the time, you just need what we call a DOS, or a designated organization screening. A facility security clearance is when we would actually come out to your office. We have to do a review of the filing cabinets, the locks, different things, because you would actually be keeping confidential, secret, or top secret information, assets, anything like that at your work location. I can tell you this does not happen a lot. We tend to keep our own documents and not rely on a contractor to have those types of clearances and stuff, but depending on the nature of the work, you may have to go through a facility clearance. More importantly, the one you want to focus on is the DOS, the designated organization screening, because if you do want to be in ProServices, TBIPs, SBIPs, a lot of our supply arrangements, you will actually need to go through screening for your organization. We will sponsor you, and you can go through that process in order to become pre-qualified onto those lists. Part of the process of becoming security cleared with the federal government is now you need to have mandatory fingerprints done. So before we brought in fingerprinting, it actually took us sometimes up to a year to have contractors cleared with the federal government, which doesn't help anyone in terms of our contracting process. It was very lengthy. We've now brought in electronic fingerprints, and we can clear people much faster. It can be done in days, but more realistically, it's going to be done in weeks. Like 3 weeks is a pretty reasonable estimate now. It does require, though, that you go to your local RCMP detachment. If you are living in a city that has RCMP, you can go get fingerprinting done there. Otherwise, we actually have contractors that we have contracted with to do these fingerprints in cities that don't have RCMP, such as Vancouver, which is VPD instead of RCMP. Another thing, and sorry, just about the fingerprinting, I do have a reference list as well for who you can talk to and how that all works. Another thing we're going to put you through in order to get security cleared is a mandatory credit check. We're not necessarily looking at your credit score per se or things like that. We know when you start a business that there are different things that you do with your credit in order to finance your business and stuff like that. So it's not going to eliminate you one way or another, but it is something that we have now implemented as a mandatory check. It is also mandatory now for all employees of the federal government to go through a credit check as well. So it just requires that you consent to us doing a credit check on you. Whether or not we run that credit check is up to us, but it is part of the screening process that you would need to go through. So for more information, when we do share this presentation, you can click on some of these links, and just if you go to the mandatory electronic fingerprints, it will give you locations where you can go to get that done. When you apply to these agreements, you will be sponsored by someone who runs those agreements, and they will provide you with information about the process around getting a security clearance with the federal government. For anyone that has a security clearance with the federal government, if you have it because you were a former employee, you will need to go through a new clearance because you now have your own company, so it's slightly different, as well as if you have it because you worked for someone else and you have now started your own company. We can look at transferring the clearance, but it's pretty much the same process as if you just got a new clearance under your new company. So clearances are company-based, and then personnel, they don't actually travel person with the person. So as long as your company is cleared with those people, you're good. But if you move company to company, every time you're going to need to do a new clearance. We do have free webinars to talk about the clearance process. You can contact our contract security program or us in OSME as well. We can assist you through this process if you need any help with it. So ProServices, this is one of our mandatory methods we use to buy professional services. And as I mentioned below, it is for requirements up to the NAFTA threshold. So currently, NAFTA for services is up to $106,000. So we will use this for contracts that are valued up to that. There's about 158 different categories that are in ProServices. So you can look through, we divide them up into IT and non-IT, and you can apply to both. You can be in the IT streams as well as the non-IT streams, and you can go for as many categories as you are qualified under when you apply into ProServices. So sorry, just back to the clearance, the security clearance checks. So they cannot be pre-done. So it is something that you do, we require you to have a sponsor at the federal level for. So you need someone to actually say, here's the paperwork, this is the reason you need a clearance, and you get that when you apply to ProServices. So as part of your application to professional services, we will walk you through the security process. But the only way to get a sponsor for a clearance is either to be bidding on something that has a security requirement, to be looking at a standing offer supply arrangement that has a security requirement. Those are pretty much the only ways to get someone to sponsor you for a clearance. So TSPS, this is the one that I mentioned, and I'm not going to focus a lot on it. It's the next level to ProServices, but it's strictly for HR, so for what we call non-information, non-IT resources. There are quite strict requirements. So if you're interested in that, I would be happy to follow up with you individually, but do note the monetary requirement of having over $500,000 in sales for our Tier 1 in the last 5 years. These are some of the streams for TSPS. The same kind of requirements for task-based informatics professional services. So this is the IT side of TSPS, and because it's task-based, this is where we are going to set out the requirement, and we're going to look for you to just respond to that. So there's not as much creativity. We're telling you this is your task. We're looking that you are able to do that. So as a result, we have both a standing offer and a supply arrangement within this agreement. Again, the requirements to get into TBIP, any of these streams, as well as SBIP, are quite strict. So I'm happy to follow up with you directly to have a conversation. But I've been with this office for about 10 years now, and I think I've met about 3 companies that are interested in these agreements. So I don't want to focus too much on them just because they have such high sales requirements. But SBIP is the other side of TBIP, so that's where we're looking for you to propose a solution to us. Therefore, it is strictly a supply arrangement, so it gives us more flexibility. So some of the streams that would fall into that are there. And then, so learning services, this is another one that if you're interested in, you can go through the CPSS, the Centralized Professional Services System, to get that tombstone data. This falls into it. And it's to provide training for traditional classroom-based training as well as e-learning, or putting some of our traditional classroom-based training into e-learning. Just one thing to note is that it does exclude commercial off-the-shelf training, so it is more for custom courses. It's through the Canada School of Public Service, so it is courses that are pretty much internal to government based on our needs. So an example would be we would have a lot of courses around procurement, so for procurement officers to understand all the rules around being a buyer for the federal government. We would have those specific courses, which wouldn't be something we could just get off the shelf as regular training. When we did change management, or if we're doing executive level personal development, we may be looking for things like Myers-Briggs or something like that that is more commercial off the shelf. That would be another process that you would have to go through, and it would be excluded from that. So some of the streams for learning services are here. And we do not have any specific platforms or tools that we would build, these courses on. We would often look to you to help us develop that. We would be giving you our IT requirements, as you saw. Perhaps some of the issues from today were because we are on Internet Explorer. We don't have always the best or the latest IT requirements, platforms, things like that. So we would outline all those things that we would need you to work with in order to be able to assist us in providing within the learning services supply arrangement. And then we have the PAS, so Professional Audit Support Services. So, if we are looking, Treasury Board, which kind of sets out the rules, the policies, are kind of the governing body for government in a sense. If they're looking to do any internal audits or anything like that, they may go through this supply arrangement in order to find an auditor or someone who can help, even just updating policies, controls, rules, feasibility studies, things like that would be through this supply arrangement. It is very specific to audit support, so again, just make sure that you qualify for this. And all of these ones that I have talked about, so ProServices, TBIPs, SBIPs, TSPS, PAS, Learning Services, again, they're all found on this buyandsell.gc.ca, the actual tender documents to get into the supply arrangements. So here you go, forensic audit. There's a long list of things that we would use this for. And then we have training services. So as I mentioned before, if we're looking to do in BC or Pacific region, we may need to do more French training. In Quebec, they may need to do more English training. But we do have an official languages training services that you can compete on. So that would be again used through the Canada School of Public Service to provide language training. So as executives need to have language training in order to qualify for their jobs, we may send them on different language training or hire a specific person in order to work with them to make sure that they're capable of providing service and working in English and French. So these are some of the streams. So as I mentioned, it could be full-time, it could be part-time, and it could be either group or individual training, and we would get a list of qualified service providers, and then we would draw from that list as needed. So all the specific links to these different opportunities are listed at the bottom of the slide. You can click on those for more information. And then we also have the Translation Bureau, which I mentioned before, where we provide translation to actually a number of other governments as well as our own government. So it can be for, on-site translation if we're having meetings. It can be written interpretation. So we've started to offer on an as-needed basis and promote ASL interpretation at the events that my office is putting on. We've had a requirement for that, so we've started to upfront offer it. So we may go through translation services to offer that. Different things like that would all go under the Translation Bureau. And we also translate into a number of Aboriginal languages as well. So if that's something that you are able to do, that would definitely be a need of ours. And we translate into over 100 different languages. It's not just English and French. So you can look at the Translation Bureau's website, which again is down, their email is down here. I would say Google Translation Bureau, and you will find the information about becoming a supplier. This is out of the CPSS, that Centralized Professional Services one that I was talking about. You would need to go directly to the Translation Bureau's website to find information. And then we also have temporary help. So if we are looking to hire someone, maybe someone's on sick leave for 6 weeks or something, and temporarily we just need to bring someone in to backfill for them. We have temporary help supply arrangements, standing offers that are region specific. So outside of NCR, that's a very Ottawa term, but NCR is our National Capital Region, and so we have one agreement for that region, and then we have agreements for every other region. And it's kind of, as we call you up, you would be able to send an employee over to us who could work for, up to 48 weeks or different requirements depending on what it is. This would also require some security clearances. So this is something you would want to look at when you are applying to get into our temporary help services standing offers. And then on buy and sell, you can find the actual agreement. You can either click here, or if you look up temporary help in active tenders, you would be able to see when we're looking to renew that and have companies compete to get onto that list. So Select, this is a database for contractors in construction, engineering, architecture, anything like that, any kind of maintenance services as well, and then consulting such as project management or stuff like that would relate to either construction, architecture, or engineering services. This is, again, outside of that CPSS, but you can find it on the Buy and Sell website. And it's always open. You can get into this agreement whenever you like. And Select is a little bit unique in the sense that it actually works on a rotationary basis. So as new companies come in, as well as companies that have performed well in the past, those are the ones that we send out the opportunities to bid on. So you can look at this. The first step is getting that Procurement Business Number, as I mentioned, but this is a pre-approved agreement specific to construction, architecture, engineering, and then consulting related to those fields. And it is up to around $100,000 that we would use this for. Anything beyond that, we would be posting specific opportunities on the Buy and Sell website. So I'm going to leave a little bit of time. I tried to answer some of the questions as I went. If I didn't answer yours, please retype it. Let me know if I've missed anything. But that's kind of an overview of different professional services methods of supply that the federal government would have. This is our contact information, so wherever you are in Canada, we do have an office that would be accessible to you. We also have a toll-free number for anyone who's looking for information about registering and supplier registration information. This is our Pacific region contact information, and more specifically, this is our office. and I realized that I am not on this list. So feel free to, I'm going to try typing my contact information and hopefully you get that. But otherwise, you can reach out to anyone and they can pass on your information, or when Women's Enterprise sends all this information out, they can include my contact information with it. So I do apologize for that. But I'm just going to try to add my contact information. Otherwise, it's TESS.MENGES, same ending as all of these people for my email address. So I would be happy to answer any questions now that anyone may have if you want to type it in, or again, we're happy to follow up with you if you have anything more specific that you want to discuss. And the webinar that we are going to do in November will specifically walk you through professional services and registering in that agreement and what it all looks like, because that is the most commonly used agreement and the one that we find is of interest to most small businesses.
Thanks, Tess. And as Tess said, we will be passing on her contact information in the follow-up email that will go out, as long as the recording, because I know there's a few people that weren't able to get on just because of the technical issues. So we will have a recording that's going to be sent out. Tess, you can see the Q&A, right? So you can see the questions that I think you already answered.
Yeah, so I did see one. Yeah, I do see one here. To work for the government, are there specific business insurance that is needed? There is specific business insurance that is needed. It may not be specific to working for the government versus working for a private company. It depends on your industry. It depends on what you're doing. Sometimes in certain industries, construction industry or something, common practice may be to have $1 million liability. Government may require that you have $2 million liability. So it's industry specific, and it's something I would suggest you talk with your insurance broker. As well, any specific insurance things that we require you to have for that individual contract will be listed in all our terms and conditions and in the documents that you download. So you will be aware up front before you bid of what those requirements would be. And I think I answered all the other questions. Oh, how would you state bid price if it is flexible? So that's another question we just got. So bid price for a standing offer, that's where it tends to be more for goods or something that we can predetermine. So if it's in the service industry and it's strictly labor hours for a junior employee versus a senior employee, we would ask you to state those types of prices. The total price of what we would pay you would not be determined at that point because we don't know what the work is going to be. And in terms of a supply arrangement, we would not actually ask you to give us pricing yet. We would ask for pricing once we've given you all the requirements, so there would be no flexibility at that point. You would know exactly what work you need to do, what level of people you need to put on the project, how long the project is going to last for. So at that point, you would be able to give us a price. And then, is there a particular contact for further information on learning services and training? So I believe for learning services, let me just go back. So when you get a copy of the presentation, if you go to this link, or again, Google works very well, as well as the Centralized Professional Services portal. There's actually contacts you can find for all of these supply arrangements through that CPSS portal. They're usually kind of a general mail-in box and phone number, but they have a contact for suppliers for all of these. So try that, or through the CPSS portal, or again, send me an email and I can send you the direct link as well.
Great. So maybe we'll leave it there. I'm just going to pop it back to the Women's Enterprise just to let you see what we have next. So we do have another webinar coming up. Hopefully it won't have the same technical difficulties, called Scaling for Success series. So it's a 5-part series. And then, as Tess mentioned, we have a follow-up to this webinar, how to get your business on the ProServices website. And that's going to be on November 22nd. So we encourage everybody to register and sign up for that. And again, we will send you all this information along with the recording and the slides and Tess's contact information, so you can follow up with her directly if you have any questions about things discussed during the session. So thanks again, Tess, for taking the time to share all this information with us. And we look forward to the next Mentor Advisory Forum.
Yeah, thank you for hosting, and sorry about the delays, but I didn't feel that I had to rush through the seminar, so it all worked out.
Yeah, and we finished right on time, so it worked out. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.